Steve Schmidt, you tweeted this. A tide of extremism has risen from the ashes of a failed American coup. What strikes me is how much more extreme our broken politics has gotten since the Trump coup. And there is an absolute black hole of nothingness where there should be a focus and a passion around defending American democracy and a birthright of freedom that remains the envy of people all over the world.
Yeah, look, Nicole, good afternoon. You know, everything that Jackie just said there is startling to hear, of course, but we know it already. This has been so for a long time. These people that she mentioned, from Paul Gosar, who has raised money with a Holocaust denier, who has aligned himself with white nationalists and white supremacists, no hyperbole at all involved, just factually, who's ideated about the murder of a congresswoman, Matt Gaetz, all the rest of them. They're loony, they're crazy. Lauren Boebert, 6, 7 different arrests on her criminal jacket. These political extremists are in charge of the Republican Party. We've known that. We are seeing a Republican Party continue to metastasize. The autocratic moment is evolving. The threat is deepening. And they are poised to take power in the midterms in 2022. Kevin McCarthy, I think, will have a real hard time being speaker. He failed at it before. But the people you just mentioned are going to drive the message of the Republican Party. It's an opportunity for Democrats to run against, to campaign against. And when we talk about all of this, I'm just reminded by this Winston Churchill quote, you know, trying to explain the Second World War. And what he said was the malice of the wicked was aided by the weakness of the virtuous. And you have this collection of people that have pretended this isn't happening, turned away from it, continue to pretend it's not happening. But all the while, the temperature rises in America with regard to this moment of extremism.
And one of the most alarming aspects of this is attempts to launder what they all know is BS. And Steve, I want to show you Ted Cruz's performance, because that's what it was, performative punditry on CBS.
I had many conversations with him in days and weeks and months leading up to January 6th. I talked to the president sometimes as often as once a week or once a day. But my point is simple. Under the Constitution, Congress has a role and has a responsibility when it comes to certifying votes. You look at 1876 and the election of 1876, there was a contested election. There were serious allegations of election fraud. And what Congress did in 1876 is it appointed an electoral commission.
Right, but
it consisted
the people,
of 5 members of the Senate, 5 members of the House, 5 Supreme Court justices.
That what you're laying out as an intellectualized argument here is not what people gathered and chanting things like Mike Pence were talking about. You know that.
Look, I think the violence that happened on that day was horrific. Okay. Democrats and a lot of the press decided to just engage in incendiary rhetoric rather than acknowledge voter fraud is real. It is a problem.
Well, do you have...
And the allegations of voter fraud needed to be examined on the merits.
Okay, Senator, there is no evidence of fraud that would have really drawn the outcome of the election into doubt. You know that.
So, Steve, a lot of problems with that, and I'll leave conversations about platforming Ted Cruz to others, but there were allegations of election fraud. No, there weren't. I mean, Bill Barr was the Attorney General, for Christ's sake, and Chris Krebs, a lifelong Republican, was in charge of election integrity, and Rudy Giuliani took his allegations of fraud to dozens of courts, and there wasn't any. So why is this person, Ted Cruz, still on TV saying that?
Well, this is a historically despicable person, Nicole. He ranks right up there with Joe McCarthy. He's a demagogue. He's a liar. He is as irresponsible a United States senator as there has ever been in the history of the United States. He arrived in the Senate and has been a vandal towards our institutions and towards the idea of the truth and delivering it to the American people. So again, it's all nonsense that he's spouting out of his mouth. Again, we have a real-life autocratic movement in this country. two elements in order to sustain one are the cynicism of its elites. Men like Ted Cruz, who've had every advantage, every opportunity, graduate of the most elite institutions in the country like Harvard Law School, who believe they can ride the Trump tiger, that they can play its supporters for fools, that they can benefit and accrete power to themselves. So when you look at somebody like Ted Cruz, you know he's lying. Everybody knows he's lying. Ted Cruz knows he's lying. But extraordinary cynicism coupled with the type of propaganda and that comes out of Fox News and the right wing can turn that nonsense into reality. And so Ted Cruz helped incite the January 6 attacks with his lying, with his instigations. He was, of course, revving up the crowd there that morning, and he has sought to whitewash it with more lying for many, many months. He is a truly despicable figure at a moment of real crisis. History will judge him very, very harshly should American democracy prevail in the years of fight that lie ahead between this extremist movement that is gaining strength, not decreasing in strength.